We get into it this hour with the Member of Parliament for Gatanga Constituency, Wakili Edward Muriu. Good morning.
Good morning, Oko, and my good friend Latif. Happy to see all of you on this very, very, very wet morning.
This Latif is actually CT Muga. The other Latif is, CT Muga. Doing something somewhere else.
The agent provocateur.
I'm going to put an end to this friendship.
Right?
My apology.
This friendship when he can just call you whatever.
He just call me what he likes.
My apologies.
I'm going to call him Songo just now.
My apologies. It's early morning and here we are. And the three of you, this is your fault because you have not invited me this year.
Okay.
This is your fault. So if I mix up the names and the like, kindly. And then also you are sitting where that man I mentioned is.
So I kind of look like him because I'm sitting in
Here we are.
Well,
thanks a lot for giving me an opportunity to meet you today.
There's a chance to redeem yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so CT goes around, as you know, to different countries every week rather, and he gets a proverb from one country, a proverb a day from one country. And this week he's in the Republic of Congo, and so he has a proverb, and then you will tell us when he tells us what that proverb means or how it resonates with you. Is that fair deal?
Well, I'll simply mention the proverb. It's simple, and then you'll tell us how you resonate with it. Okay?
Awesome.
Let me now say how the Congolese would say it. I will not get the intonation right, but I will simply read it as is written. Kokende liboso eza kokoma te. Meaning, te. To go ahead doesn't mean you have arrived.
Mheshimiwa,
yes.
what does that mean to you? What do you think? What do you think the Congolese are saying here?
I think I think it's very resonates with also with our even in my language has almost a similar metaphor because life is a journey. It's not a destination. Starting the journey has not meant you have arrived. Yeah, and you're very right in terms of even a human life, basic human life. It does not end with death. It's a journey all through. So I think it tells us not to be too comfortable. We have a long way to go.
Indeed. Well, 1,000,000 points.
Yes.
I'm giving them on behalf of CT. And you may do with them as you please. All right. As we get into our conversation this morning, the legislature, Gatanga Constituency, how are things going? Let's just, get a status report from you. How are things going from a legislative point of view as we're getting into year 2 of this administration? How have things been going on your side?
I would say that it's a mixed bag. And the weighing scale is in favor of the general feeling of the people on the ground. I was there yesterday. I had gone to deliver checks to our schools. We have a very ambitious program of revamping our learning institutions. We are putting a budget of about 400 million. And this year we are releasing about 160. Surprisingly, maybe for your information, Gatanga is one of the first destinations of the colonialist. And therefore, in their wisdom or lack of it, they were able to put a lot of schools, especially the missionaries. And those schools require a lot of revamping. I will surprise you, my father went to a local school. It's called Kihumbuini Primary School. He's 85 years old. And it's still the same. It looks the same way. It used to look those days in the 50s. My mother went to a primary school called Gatanga Primary School. It looks the same. So we have huge agenda. And just to answer your question, I come from what you can call a peri-urban constituency, because we border Thika. In fact, almost half of that constituency is Del Monte Estate, Kakuzi PLC, and other large coffee farms. So almost half in terms of the large size, it's more commercial. And then on the southern border, we border the city of Nairobi. So what it means that it's peri-urban in terms of mixture of people's needs. And talking about the what you call the bedrock of the politics down there, they're farmers. They're coffee farmers, they're avocado farmers, they're tea farmers, they're macadamia farmers, and they rely on their farms for their welfare. One of the things I would like to say is that, first of all, let me thank God for the rain. Because rain is 90% of our problems. Water is 90% of our problems.
Or lack of it, rather.
Yes, the lack of our problems or lack of it. And that solves very many issues, because when you have a population of about 110,000 registered voters, talk about like 300, 400,000 registered, population, which predominantly depends on agriculture, and there's rain, then there is, that it means 90% of the problem are solved. Because with now introduction of this, of the subsidized fertilizer, there is enough food. With the new intervention in the coffee sector, with the new increase in terms of the intervention, especially on the marketing of tea, then maybe I tell you that maybe this year they might receive the largest bonus. In terms of tea, is doing very well. Avocado, Gatanga is leading in the country in terms of avocado production. Actually, the statistics says we do about 23 to 25% of all the avocados grown in this country. And last year we were able to generate about 20 billion in the whole country in the avocado. It's a big business, and surprisingly, every show has one or two trees. So I would say the cost of living has gone down. The life is bearable. Then there's also social interventions which the government has come up with. The Inua Jamii programs, whereby Gatanga registered one of the largest numbers in terms of the people above 70 years, close to about almost like 15,000. They are getting their stipends on monthly basis. The bursary system through the CDF system, you find that again you're supporting the parents with students in secondary school and universities with bursaries, just to cushion them against the vagaries of the economies. Again, the bursary has gone up. So in terms of support at the ground level, both in terms of securing the area by putting up new police stations, chiefs camps, and the like, is going on very well. And finally, of course, in terms of the road network, of course, the roads with these trains, they are a bit slippery. But again, there's elaborate plans to ensure that those roads are passable. But again, 70%, 80% of our roads in Gatanga, they're tarmacked. So just a few connecting roads which need a bit of intervention. The Great Maimau Road are still having a bit of a problem because the government has not been able to put new money to be able to bring back the contractor on site. So basically what I would like to say is that the social interventions which the government has put in place is cooling the tempers. People are no longer putting sufurias in their heads in the name of the price of unga. They have enough to eat. And the basic interventions is purely maybe areas of power, and new roads, and making sure that the society is well supported in all those other aspects. But finally, big challenge, because again, it's good as a leader to not to only give you the flowery part, but maybe also give you the other side of the coin. We have a serious issues of unemployment. And I'm sure that cuts across the board. And it's sad that we on one hand we are drumming up support for education, make sure they go to school, blah blah blah, but on the other hand we are not drumming employment in the same breath, the same strength. So again, that's a challenge, and I think and I'm sure that there are a number of interventions which are in place, but they have not started yielding the desired results. The employment for our youth is at catastrophic level.
It's at a tipping point.
Yeah.
So we've established that there are a number of people within the constituency essentially that they depend on you for what you're going to be able to legislate that will directly affect their lives. Whether it is they're talking about tea, whether coffee, whether avocado, whatever it is that they're looking at that would affect them directly, they actually then do depend on you. When you go to the National Assembly and you start to represent, you start to lobby for legislation or for certain things, right? They do depend on you for that. Have you been able to see that this dependence on you coupled with what you actually do in the house is yielding results?
I would say the mandate of the people. By background, I'm a commercial corporate lawyer. And and therefore it's a totally big is a fundamental shift from what I used to do. And I've come to appreciate the power of the vote. I will tell you something very interesting just to answer your question. When I initially elected, the water you take in your homes, 80 to 90% comes from Gatanga constituency, a dam called the Kaini Dam. I will surprise you, that water, it is consumed in Nairobi, but has never been consumed in the Gatanga constituency.
And yet it comes from
the heart of Gatanga constituency in a place called Akaini.
Could you explain how that is so?
Yep, I'm coming there. And this is key to just answer the question in terms of the effectiveness of representation and effectiveness as a member of parliament when you come to representation, because legislation is one thing, representation is the other. You'll be surprised that dam was built 30 years ago. Not a drop of water had been taken, and yet Gatanga is water deficient, because once you collect all their water and take all of it to Nairobi, you leave them with nothing. Naturally, it's water deficient. Therefore, people have been using to take water from small streams, dirty rivers, and most maybe some dirty boreholes. And by the virtue of my position, I've been able to lobby for the first time in the history to be able to get 10 million liters every day. That is 1,000 cubic liters of water to be injected in the Gatanga water system from the Kaini Dam. In fact, 2 weeks ago, we had a major function we call Gatanga Water Day, because it's a big political issue. And I brought in the PS4 Water, Kimodo, the CEOs for Adi Water, the Waterworks, the CEO for National Irrigations, again, just talk about the water and assure the people. And what came out clearly is that hopefully in the next 1 month or so, we will be able to, the people of Gatanga will taste their own water for the first time in 30 years. That's the power of representation and the power of the vote, because it has given me access not only to any office in this country. In fact, this came from that was given by the president when I made an appeal to him when he came to my constituency, and it has yielded in about a year in such a way that 30 years no water, but in 1 year there is water. The other issue maybe I would like to mention is a realm of agriculture. I've said that Gatanga constituency, the bedrock is farmers. Coffee, tea, avocado, macadamia, cutting across the board, over and above trade and commerce and this kind of thing. I'm sure you heard the far about the avocado taxation issues. And maybe I will surprise you, and maybe it's good to give the background. Our KRA happened to conduct a sensitization campaign within the area, requesting farmers to register under teams so that they can sell the avocado. What message came to you see, there is the message and how it is received.
There's what is stated, there's what people hear.
Exactly. That's what you say and what I hear. Yes. So the people understood that they'll start paying taxes. And there was a big issue. There happened to be that meeting. And of course I said very clearly that first and foremost as a member of parliament, having voted for the finance bill 2023, there is no provision where farmers are supposed to be taxed. In fact, I fought at KRA for jumping the gun because they went there to educate people on the provisions of Section 23A. And the Section 23A talks about the need, or rather the provision provides for registration of everybody who is doing business under e-teams. And I told them, number one, primary agriculture is not business. It is primary agriculture. That's how it's defined by the Act. And therefore, before they can even go to the farmers, now one of the things they need to do is just make sure that everybody who does trade is registered, again, to comply with the law. But again, also the message was also wrong because it was a long starting place. It is going to the farmers, the avocado farmers, telling them to start registration. Of course, everybody sees, yes, I'm getting registered for what purpose? For purposes of taxation. And I'll tell you, and I've put these things in Parliament. I put this thing in our media and say, look, Section 23A has not touched the farmers at all.
Okay, can we just hold on to that a minute, because we've come from the precedent where you told us that everything is, fantastic in Gatanga. People are going to school, bursaries have been received, and that everybody's doing well. But the situation on the ground seems to be a little bit different, where folks are complaining about one of these things that you have mentioned. If we do look at Section 23A, it does say very clearly, the Finance Act introduced 23A. It grants the Commissioner the authority to establish an electronic tax system for issuing tax invoices and recording stocks, right? And so everybody essentially falls under this. But folks are complaining, first of all, that these are things that should have been seen previously when there was agreement towards the Finance Act, which, everybody overwhelmingly voted for. But that it should have been seen that this would have been something that would come then to scuttle the businesses of people like the ones in Gatanga. How would we have agreed to something previously and having not seen this clause, which is clear that it was coming about to touch on basically everybody who sells a product or deals in a product in the country?
I think, as a lawyer, I'll tell you, when it comes to legal interpretation, there is the wording and the spirit. If you read properly Section 23A, it says every person is supposed to register on e-teams. Registration and taxation are two different things. That clause, the spirit behind it is data collection. And when it comes to public matters, and you learn as you go, you need to be very careful, because first and foremost, you need to start from why. Before when you go to the public, you need to start from why. The purpose here is very, very important. The spirit is to collect the data on what people are doing.
Is KRA a data collection agency, or is it a tax collection agency?
You can't collect data you can't collect tax without data.
What is the ultimate goal?
I'm trying to explain the spirit of the law. For my understanding, the spirit is to ensure that by the time they make their own decisions in terms of taxation, they have a data on what everybody does. Remember, the e-teams, what it does is that before you sell anything, you donate an e-teams invoice. and that shows the kind of activities and the a ton of us which you are generating, and automatically you get into what you call the taxation radar. One of the things Kenyans fear most is what you call direct taxation. Indirect taxation, they don't worry. They know there is indirect taxation when you buy fuel, and even when you travel in a matatu. There is indirect tax when you buy bread and milk. But I think one of the greatest fear for Kenyans, and not only farmers but everybody, is direct taxation. So the spirit is to capture data.
I can understand.
Now, the issue here is how was the message delivered to the people, and that's all the issue. And because it came out like, oh, the government is done away with now the middle class and their pay slips. Now they're heading to the farmers, and of course that was narrative which was trying to be.
Allow me to take a few steps back, because I think this is very important. Because at the time when the Finance Act was being debated in Parliament by yourselves, one would have wondered why all of these issues were not read, and why they were not accepted or discussed as to now the spirit and the practice. Because as I think about it now, it's very clear in my mind, one who is mandated to collect tax, that is their end goal. Anything that they will do in the interim is leading them to the point whereby they will collect taxes.
Absolutely.
It is not possible that you would imagine that KRA is saying, just share your data with me and then let's just have a wonderful time where we're looking at data. It is for the ultimate collection of taxes, right? So at the time that the Finance Act was being passed by your good selves, was this issue brought up? Was it debated and said, hold on a minute, why are you asking for this information? Or did we just pass it in merriment and in good faith and then wait until later when we actually see the result of what it's happening or what it's doing to the good people of Gatanga, and then we say, hang on a minute, this is actually not what the Act said? Or did we understand it in the beginning?
I repeat again, and I think for avoidance of doubt, the spirit behind Section 23A is to empower KRA as a body empowered under the Constitution in terms of revenue collection to work from a point of information. And there's no harm in that. But as I said, it came out, how the message was packaged when it comes to data collection is wrong. Now, let's go back a bit. Everybody, big and small, have a PIN number. By the virtue of the PIN number, it means that every transaction, you are supposed to put your PIN number on whatever system it is. But that does not mean that there is an element of taxation. But I think it's important as an institution to be empowered to have the data for them to make well-considered decision. Let me come to the crunch of the matter here. And again, that is basically the elephant in Section 23A. It came out that the purpose of this is to levy taxation on farmers. Because,
absolutely.
Yes, I'm coming there.
Yeah.
And it
in
wasn't.
particular, the avocado farmers.
Absolutely.
That's the narrative.
Was it a false narrative, Mheshimiwa?
It is a totally false narrative. I've been saying that in the book of Matthew,
Okay. 23A.
there'll come a time when we shall have what we call false prophets, and those false prophets will be doing miracles just the way Jesus used to do them. There is a narrative, especially by the opposition, a narrative also pushed by the media, and it's purely geared towards bringing a separation or bring a wedge between the farmers and the government.
Just a few months back, when a bill that essentially invited all that we are seeing today was passed by the National Assembly, passed by Parliament rather, and now we see the effects of that. And the question is, was due diligence done at that time when these issues were passed in Parliament?
You know, I'm very proud about this country. And what makes me very proud about this country is that we are discussing issues which matter. It's not mundane matters. If you go back like 3-4 years ago, this time around, the kind of conversation which were in the radio are very mundane, very sectional, very tribal. But I like the focus not only on the media but also the general populace in terms of the conversations which we are doing what you call a national discourse. And I maybe just to assure you, the bills in Parliament when they come, remember they come to Parliament on what you call the plenary. And before they come to Parliament, remember there's a committee which interrogates them in detail and makes recommendations. And therefore, when it comes now to Parliament, it does not come to Parliament as an omnibus. It's not just drafted and thrown to the plenary. It has a lot of elaborate process, and then what the committee does makes certain recommendations, and those recommendations are very important because they are what you call the pointers on the direction the budget or the finance bill is taking, and therefore I want to assure you and assure the nation that there is no what you call omnibus passing of bills in Parliament. They are interrogated, they are debated, and coming to this issue, because again that has been the narrative. All the members of Parliament, they just do an acclamation, they say yes and they vote, and then there you are. That is wrong.
Okay.
The bills are properly interrogated. Remember, we are the guardian of the people. And therefore, one of our key duty responsibility is to ensure their interest is taken care of. And I said, Section 23A is meant to put everybody in the radar. Developed countries, that's what they do. We are heading there. But the difference between putting everybody in the radar and taxation. And I would like to elaborate something very important here. Kenya, like any other country in the world, recognizes the role played by primary agriculture. I'm a farmer. And a primary agriculture is where a farmer takes a seed, plants, waits for the rain, prays to God that there are no pests, no man gives with his produce, and then eventually, hopefully, he's able to harvest. That is totally different from trade. And all over the world, primary agriculture is subsidized. America is one of the largest subsidizers of their farmers. Ukraine, Russia, and even UK, their farmers are subsidized and protected. In Kenya, in the same analogy, the farmers are protected. Remember, 80 to 90% of Kenyans are farmers. They depend on their shambas to be able to feed themselves. They are not traders. They are not business people. They are farmers. And therefore, the policy of the government and the policy and my position as a member of Parliament is protect agriculture. And that's where you find this current government is very robust in terms of providing cheap fertilizer. Price which we came back all the way from 7,500 to about 2,500, bring down the price by almost close to about 75%, and that is key, and that is a pointer to the importance of this agenda. Number two, it is one of the largest employers. It's one of the largest.
Not one of.
It is the largest. Is the largest employer of our people. Yes. And the moment you keep people busy in their farms and they produce their own food, the social order comes into place.
Okay.
And therefore, I think it would be wrong to say, look, on one hand, the government is very busy providing cheap fertilizer, providing markets for the farmers, coming up with what you call creating an enabling environment for farming, and on the other hand, you are waiting a farmer with a hammer to tax them. In fact, it's not possible.
So you're saying that's unfair?
It's not possible.
You know, Mheshimiwa, the statement you made about the media and the narratives that we push, let us take it gracefully that indeed we as the media sometimes push narratives that are not palatable to many people. The matter of taxation becomes an issue not when people are taxed, but when taxation represents something that people do not consider to be useful. The whole point of taxation is so that the government has the means to provide services for the citizenry. That's really what the taxation, and the government doesn't have any other business. That's how the government goes about raising its money. It taxes people. Now, if people understand that their taxes go towards the things that make their lives better, there is absolutely no reason why people would have a problem with taxation. There is absolutely nothing wrong with Kenya Revenue Authority conducting a census, collecting data. Absolutely nothing wrong, because the more data they collect, the better informed they will be when they're making taxation decisions. There is nothing even wrong with these e-tips. All these things that we talk about, in and of themselves, whether we're talking about the letter thereof or the spirit, nothing is wrong. What becomes a problem is when people feel. And there's a reality embedded in their minds that their lives are becoming more difficult, meaning, and they can't afford to live as they have been accustomed to. So when the government asks for more taxes, the pushback is, but we have already been paying taxes and our lives are difficult. Now, if you tax us more, our lives will be even more difficult because we will have less. Now, you happen to be in the party that currently is in the chair and is governing this country. If you look at the taxes that we have, and if you look at the rate at which we pay off debts that were acquired on our behalf, not by this government alone. This government have done their fair share and have done it fairly well. But the previous governments, whatever remains to conduct the affairs of government is a very small amount. Now, when members who are elected like yourself, Mheshimiwa, communicate these things to the citizenry listen and they actually believe you. Where problem arises when they can't connect what you've said with what they are experiencing. Then when that disconnect occurs, then there's a bit of a problem. Now, the finance bill, we've had many things said about it. People have said it was too voluminous, they didn't quite read all of it. Those matters are neither here nor there. That it was passed is also neither here nor there. Most people don't even understand that there's a finance bill literally every year. So it's not something new. It's just that when it is highlighted, for some people it's the first time they're hearing of it. May I then put the challenge to you, Mheshimiwa, that every time the media does something that you find unpalatable, you should speak about it. If we get something wrong, you should speak about it. In fact, point specifically at the individual who has miscommunicated. But by the same token, when we point out things to you, it is not out of malice. It is out of observation. We have observed and we're saying, this is what we have observed. If there's something we've missed, you as the wearer of the shoe should be able to tell us, excuse me, media person, what you've missed out is A, B, C, D. The truth of the matter is this. If there is even a whiff, not the existence, just a whiff of taxation, when what preoccupies the minds of most people in this country is that their lives are difficult and they cannot manage to live as they should, they will not accept any notion of new taxation. It is a problem. They have difficulties with it. So how do you, elected members of our society, communicate what is taking place to make their lives easier and how it is that what they believe is not in essence the truth?
Taxation is a very delicate balance. Because remember, on one hand, you are taking money. On the other hand, you are promising services. And therefore, it is not what you call a cup of coffee when it comes to public discourse on taxation. However, one of the there are two things here. Taxation and prosperity goes hand in hand. taxation and prosperity goes hand in hand. If research says the countries which pay slightly higher taxes has higher levels of development. Now, what level? What I'm only talking about? Kenya taxation level is at 18% of the GDP. Countries like America, you talk about like 44. Nordic countries maybe above 50. But you find that there is an element of taxation and prosperity. Countries which are less taxed, and this is very important, countries which have less taxation has less connection with the government and therefore has less demands. One of the countries with the least taxation against GDP is DRC Congo. The next one is Nigeria. And therefore you find the connection between the rulers and the ruled, there's a disconnect.
I'm sorry, I have to.
Let me finish.
I'm sorry. I think that it's also very important when we're sharing information that we must be also factual and Weshimiwa, because we cannot say taxing and prosperity. There's a line that you missed there, that what is actually done with the taxes essentially is what leads to this development that we are talking about. I hope
you're patient enough.
I had to put that in there so that we don't miss out on that point. Very
Thank
important.
you very much. I'll tie it up. I'll tie it up. My point here, because before I was interrupted, is that taxation and the connection with the leadership goes that hand in hand. And therefore, and that's why I said in my preamble that I like the discourse currently happening in the media, in the social media, in our TV stations, in our radio stations, and across the streets. And we are talking about our economy and how our money is spent. That is a very, very important conversation, because if you and you've been here, the conversation which we are having 2 years, 3 years, were totally different from what you have right now. Kenyans, and you've said very well, people are hearing finance bill for the first time.
And yet.
All right? So there's incremental value in terms of education. I'm here today as a leader. I'm in the Spice FM for purposes of educating Kenyans on the purpose on the bigger goal of the leadership and what we are doing. Because again, if you do not disseminate information, there's a lot of agents of what we call false information. And that's why it's important to point out that there are no services without taxation. And I said clearly when I'm opening remarks, I said, at the ground level, people are happy. The cost of unga has come down. The taxation has supported the subsidies.
Has it?
Absolutely.
Okay. If that was the case.
All right. Let me finish. Let me come home. The people who are over 70 years, the other day, the couple of months, we ran a elaborate campaign to register our citizens who are above 70%. Currently,
70 years of age.
70 years of age, and they are currently receiving the monthly stipends. It's maybe little money, but that social support is very, very important at the ground level. For me and you, 3,400, 4,000 is almost nothing. But at the ground level, somebody who has never been employed by anybody, has never earned any salary, but every month he received his 2,000, 3,000 every month, is very powerful.
And you're saying that this is possible. You're saying that this is possible
through taxation.
Because taxation has happened.
Through taxation.
All of these other things are possible
through taxation.
Okay.
And therefore, the media, the leaders, and the led have a duty to educate each other. And that's why we have media. So at least we are here to educate our people that it is important to pay taxes so that kind of those services, the bursary, the roads, the power, the water can be supplied to our people. However, let me bring this conjecture here. Over the years, throughout the independence of this country, there has been what we call trust deficiency between the governors and the governed.
It's called mistrust.
Yes. And that's what I'm saying. There's trust deficiency.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Trust deficiency in the sense that there is always a benefit of doubt. are you sure if you take this money, you're going to get X, Y, Z?
Why do you think it exists?
I'll tell you. Because over time, there has been what you call missed expectations. There has been misappropriation, and therefore we have a journey to repair that. And let me say this: the bedrock, our existential threat, the largest, the greatest existential threat in this country, it is corruption. That is our greatest existential threat for this country. And remember, corruption is not a disease. It is not an inherited problem. It is not because of it's of lack. Corruption is just bad manners.
Okay, you must see how this would confuse people, can't you? That a month and a half ago, yourself, together with another member of parliament, denied KRA, or wanted to deny KRA, the opportunity to explain to people, many of them being avocado farmers, as to what this e-teams or what this new tax or what this new information was going to be. Why would you do that if right now you're saying that actually these taxes are necessary, they're good, they're building up the nation, but you wanted to stop a particular meeting where KRA was then going to share information about how they would get into this new system? You must see how that confuses people. Why would you do that?
Let me bring you to the scene. Because sometimes you read and listen, and there's always what you call a broken telephone.
That's why you're here. That's why we're asking. All right.
The avocado farmers and aggregators invited the KRA. That meeting was called by the farmers and the aggregators. Aggregators are the ones who go to the farms, aggregate. You have got 10 avocados, 3 avocados, they aggregate them, and then they give it to the exporter. And the reason why they had gone they had called the KRA is because at the start of the season, all the aggregators received a letter from KRA saying them, look, you can't buy avocados from farmers until all those farmers are registered through e-teams. So the meeting was for KRA to explain to the farmers and the aggregators, what is this animal called e-teams all about? I was at that meeting, and KRA were given an opportunity to explain why a farmer need to register under e-teams for him to sell his 3 or 4 or 5 avocados. But they failed miserably. What came out clearly is that the message was that we are starting to tax avocado farmers. And that's why we are registering them under e-teams. So remember what I said initially. How you send the message, how you package the message and talk to the people is very, very important. If they say, look, it is a duty and the responsibility of KRA to register everybody. Now, whether there is the taxation or not taxation, just for example, just the way you would register yourself and get a PIN number. That message did not come out. It came out clearly that yes, now the government is tired with the other taxes. Now they have now gone to tax the avocado farmers at the exception of all the other farmers. And therefore the question came out. Okay, you want to tax us? Yes, okay. Do you tax coffee? Do you tax avocado? Do you tax maize? Do you tax fish? Do you tax sugarcane?
Do they?
That's a question which came out. But why us? So it's about us against them. And just to correct the position, there's nobody who was chased away. But the people say, look, I think you're in the wrong place. It's scary. Because I stood up and say, look, number one, when I do Section 23A, there's nowhere there is element whereby you're supposed to come and tax primary agriculture. No. Yes, you're supposed to correct their data, but I don't think this should be the beginning point. You need to have done the better part of the country, and everybody who is doing business, and the farmer should be the last person. So at least again, because again, it's a lot of work.
You were not the farmer. In this case, it was the avocado farmer.
Perfect.
You were looking after the interest of your constituents.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So there was no. I wanted just to clear the notion that they were chased away.
Okay, so are you
But
at
what
this point
happens-
now
what
making
happens
sure that information is coming out clear?
In a public gallery, there is a lot of science in it. And one day, I need to take you to a gallery, and you see and read the mood of the people. If you happen to say something which people do not like, they will tell you there and then. Their verdict is immediate. Yeah, that's our people. And it's not only in Gatanga constituency, it's all over the country. You find that politicians go and talk things, and they're shouted again.
They're shut down.
Right? They're shut down. So the beauty about the public engagement is that you get instant feedback. So the feedback was that was a wrong shot. And therefore, as a member of parliament for a constituency which is grows avocado, I must say clearly, you are overstepping your role here. I think you need to leave the farmers. We don't have a policy of taxing what you call primary agriculture. I think you might be overstepping your role. And maybe finally, again, this is very important, and it's good for you, good to know. KRA has, as you saw the other day, there was a court order which knocked off a number of their deliberation, especially on employment. One of their current policy is to employ people, but they earn through commission, in such a way that you eat what you kill. So the more taxation, the tax you collect, the more money you get. Now that is normally a challenge, and that's why they were heading to that direction, and you had to stop them on their feet.
The Member of Parliament for Gatanga Constituency, Wakili Edward Muriu, thank you for being here this morning. It will be interesting to see how things unfold as we get into the future, and what really does happen in Parliament. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Continuous conversations.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.